Bring a Trailer podcast. We can lead right in. Yeah, you want to talk about Europe. Europe is a fun place for us to be listing some interesting cars. I don't know if you've seen the cars there recently, but some of them were tied into our event in Europe, which is the part of Europe and the narrative that I'm excited to chat about because I was over there, 3 weeks ago now in the Netherlands at the Zandvoort F1 circuit where we did a BaT event at the historic races. They call it the Historic F1 races at Zandvoort, which they do once a year. This time it was in June, and it was terrific. And I had never been to that circuit, and BaT had never done a formal event in Europe. So for us to get to do that and have the artwork for the event, which you saw.
So sick, yeah.
Which was great. And the gear and the T-shirts and the swag and hanging out with some cars for sale. And we have a local partner over there, ImageStreetClassics, who is our first local partner in Europe. And there will be more to be announced on that as we roll forward. But we have it in the Netherlands. And so people from actually all over Europe are now inbound to ImageStreetClassics asking about how do I list a car on BaT and how can it work and what do I do? And having local assistance and advocacy over there from someone who speaks the native language and is on the ground and knows how to title the cars and knows how to ship the cars and do all that sort of thing is really important for good service for buyers and sellers over there. But interestingly enough, they brought a bunch of cars that were listed.
Yes, I want to talk about some of those.
Through the local partner. They were on the ground.
Okay.
A Tomaso Vallelunga.
So some cars we've never listed before. And that Bizzarrini, which I'd never even heard of, a 4-cylinder Bizzarrini.
Yeah, with Opel connections. I don't know if you know. I don't know if you know what's going on with that weird Bizzarrini, but a Bizzarrini, sort of baby Bizzarrini, a big Grifo.
Targa, late Mark II, super cool
with
car.
With a 5-speed, with a ZF 5-speed in it. Cool car. The Tomaso, which is really beautiful in person. That kind of stole the show. It's hard to steal a show from a Grifo, in my opinion, but you park it next to that and everybody goes to the Tomaso. So that was fascinating. And then we had a couple Alphas and a Pagoda SL on the site. But interestingly, a lot of people over there talk about BaT like it's an American phenomenon. Like, oh, I'm going to list my car in Europe on BaT because it'll sell to the American audience.
Like an American buyer.
Yeah.
Right.
So if there's good currency things going on, or if it's a model they think will be savvy over here, right? Like the early guys with 964 RSs were like, totally. I want to sell it to an American, right? Because they pay more for these cars.
Right.
So there was a lot of that narrative, but super interestingly in this moment and at this event, all of those cars bid and were live on BaT and they finished in 1 or 2 days after the event and they all went to European buyers. So they all stayed in Europe.
Interesting.
One went to Switzerland, one went to Spain, and one went back to Germany. I think it was a German car that was displayed in the Netherlands and sold back to Germany. So I thought that was super fascinating. People are all like, oh, all the buyers are going to be American dollars. And it's like, nope. It's like they're all buyers over there as well and saw that and saw the announcement and liked those cars. And I was just talking to a shipping company this week and they're like, yeah, we shipped the car to Switzerland. We shipped the...
Which one was that?
The Grifo, the Targa, went from the Netherlands to there. And it was
Do you know if any of the people were on the ground, any of the buyers?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, they could have been. The people floating around. Oh man, I wish I could be over there.
So fascinating.
No, but with you, I wish I could walk the pits with you and pit lane, and then go watch the cars being raced and stuff. Because it's just a whole different crop of vehicles, and I've been a little bit lucky to go see a race at Spa before and go see a race.
Wait, you mean on the racetrack, or you mean at the BaT gathering?
I mean all over the place. Total. When you're there, they're all different, right? Yeah. Like nobody's, well, maybe somebody, but not many people are shipping cars that we've seen race in California over to Europe to race them. So it's a whole grid of cars you've never seen before.
You and I talk about this. We see the same cars every year. I saw that car 20 years ago.
Totally. Which is great because they're familiar and there's some favorites, but so I'm not saying it's models you've never seen before. I'm just saying it's actual vehicles. Like I was looking at GT350 race cars and there's a bunch of them and they're all ones I've never seen before.
I wonder if any of them, do you know if any of them were Europe? Because they race those new in Europe. I wonder if any of them have sat there the whole time, which would be sick.
I don't know the answer to that. I just know that, man, the sound is the same and the vibe is the same. And there's so many good items over there. But we could talk a lot about that. But we're going to talk on this podcast. I think we're going to talk about Europe. We're going to talk about Reserve Not Met, new functionality on BaT that is causing quite a stir.
I feel like I want to talk about Europe the whole time, though.
But I'll jump back there. But I just wanted to lead in a little bit with that because that's another important thing to rap about. But yeah, BaT in the Netherlands and beyond, really. I mean, those cars that were listed there by Image Street, who's outside of Amsterdam. I think almost all the cars were from Germany. A couple of them were from the Netherlands, and the rest of them were from a German collector that wanted to sell them through him, which I thought was really clever, and a bunch of them moved on. So that ended up being great.
Yep. Great cars. Some stuff like, again, like I'd never heard of that Bizzarrini before. So that was really exciting. And the Vallelunga is so cool. Our first one, we've listed a couple of Mangustas, which is another Tomaso. I love plenty of Panteras, but man, that was a really pretty car. Small in person, right? And a Grifo's kind of big.
Super small. And I should have gotten in it.
I would wonder about that.
The owner of it was there. The German owner of it came over and talked to us and was a really nice guy. And he was tall. He was taller than me. And I'm 6 feet straight up, and that car would have been snug for me. So I don't know if he kept it as like a showpiece. I don't think he was climbing in it and ripping around too much, But it'd be interesting to know the
ergonomics
height stats on the buying pool for a Vallelunga. But a few people looked at it and they're like, "Wow, that is smaller than I would have thought." But it's really elegant, and the wheels are super cool, and the engine that you can see through. The sun was going through it a certain way. At one moment.
Are they campies on that, right? Campagnolas?
Must be.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about the place. How close is Zandvoort to Amsterdam? Is it a little bit of a trek, or is it pretty close?
So it's not too much of a trek. It's due west out to the beach.
It's on the water, right?
Yeah, sand is sand, right? So it's out on the dunes, and there's a little town there next to it, which we got to take cars and race cars on a parade through. And so, I mean, just so cool. It's so cool. And they come out and like applaud all the cars. It's really neat. But yeah, it's due west. There's a little, not little, but there's a meaningful town in between called Haarlem where we were staying, which is inspiration for the name Haarlem in New York. And
old monastery town or something.
There's a gigantic cathedral there. Right. Yeah. My dad and I. So my dad was with me on the trip, which was really fun. Getting to take him to BaT events has always been something that I'm excited about. And we flew over there on Father's Day, which was kind of a neat coincidence of timing. And then we killed a week driving an old Falcon around the Netherlands, which they think is crazy.
Yeah,
I thought it was so good.
Was the car good?
Excited. The car was good. I had seen it once before in the wet on a previous trip. But then this trip, I got to take my dad and actually just cut loose, and we had gotten the exhaust dialed in, and we had gotten the car right, and then got to put some miles on it. So I was super fortunate for that. I try to travel with my dad whenever I can, and so we got to drive an old Ford, which is what like me in high school, like him, and I cruising around at car events. Like so, it's flash forward many, many years, and here we are, and driving a '64 Falcon around the Netherlands and going to the racetrack. So that felt great. That was kind of part of our display. It was parked there, and man, I can talk on so many levels on this event, but there were Falcons on track.
Sick.
But there wasn't like a lot of classics that people brought. Like at Goodwood, you get preferred parking if you show up in a vintage car. And then at BaT events, we encourage everybody to bring alumni cars. And we have this killer big car park full of vintage cars. Most spectators, I would say, were there in just modern random stuff.
Diesel Golfs.
Totally. Or who knows? Or they ride bicycles there a lot.
Totally.
I mean, people come to the track in all sorts of different ways, but there wasn't like a huge car park of civilians bringing their old cars. So the Falcon was kind of a little bit of an outlier in that. So just pulling in that thing, people were like, whoa, that's crazy. So, but there were probably 5 or 6 Falcons on track that are way highly modified, fiberglass panels all over them. They're pretty heavily modified. They run with the Mustangs and sometimes beat the Mustangs, which is kind of wild. And that was sort of one of the inspiration for me getting a '64 Falcon over there is because the people over there love them. Right?
Yeah.
So when they see them drive by, they think of the race cars and whatever. So mine was in the paddock and people were like, we'd walk around and go find the Falcons and go talk to the owners or find the Mustangs, talk to the owners. And they're like, oh, you're the street Falcon guy. They're like,
the only street Falcon
totally.
guy.
They're like, I saw that because we had this beautiful spot that the organizers of the track organized for us. Right when you come in, you do a tunnel to get into the infield. And we were right there. So like everybody came in and out past us and saw the BaT cars in the display and saw the Falcon. And so all the racers were like, oh, I saw your car.
Oh, that's great.
So that was super cool.
Are the pits inside the track, like in the infield?
It's an F1 course, right? So there's like legit garages, like almost most of the cars were in the garages. And then there were some people out with their truck or their tent. But it was, if you think Laguna Seca or you think some of the US tracks, I mean, it's, when you have an F1 course, like the garage and the suites above the garage and all that sort of stuff,
yeah.
it's it's like a formula. It's very straight and it's very put together, and it has capacity, and you can put 5 cars in the garage below your suite and whatever else. So there's a ton of capacity there, more than some tracks in the US that we're used to, but really cool circuit. And
what do European tow rigs look like? That's got to be different than the US, because nobody's got a dually Suburban.
Dude, well, there's some great data points on that. It's a very good question, because on the one side, you'll get the person racing the best one on the low end side. So if somebody's racing like a Formula Junior car, a little Lotus or whatever.
Something you can put on an open trailer.
Yeah. So I saw a Tiguan towing one of those with a little European open trailer, right? And I like, this thing's pulling in. It pulls
that's my speed.
Totally. And I'm like, okay, it's like, that's one way to do it. And then you get some of the like titans of industry that are on the other side, and they got a rig and they got semi stuff. But the semis look Euro semi, right? They're
cab over, man cab over,
totally cab over, front face, and then this super sleek Euro rollout stuff, and like a lounge to sit in and all that stuff. So they do it many different ways, but there are everything from grassroots type folks to people bringing really heavy 12-cylinder Ferraris and different stuff.
And the Europeans are kind of famous for more aggressive vintage racing. Did that ring true when you were there?
Absolutely. So people are ripping and passing and spinning, and like cars are breaking, and we heard these guys that were like mad at each other. So the guy's like hood flew off. So the other guy like drove over his hood so he couldn't put it back on. It's like awesome. And
different languages too.
You shake your head, but the Spanish guys like don't like the Brit guys who don't like the Dutch guys. So anyway, all of those layers are fun. They do drive more aggressively. There are always more chatter over there around replica cars, right? So there's a Porsche 904 that's racing, and I'm like looking at it sideways. I'm like, there's no chance that's a real 904, right? So how much of that car existed in 1964?
Totally.
Probably zero, right? Totally. So anyway, some funny stuff like that. But that's true at Goodwood, and that's true at Spa and whatever. And their party line is typically like, we can race harder because we allow people to race a replica VIN number. So anyway, I don't know all the rules of that, but that's just sort of chatter.
So in theory, this is not like SVRA. This is like the Monterey Historics, where your car needs to, in theory, have real period history.
I don't think so. These Falcons, man, there's no way all of them raced back in the day, and one of them's like painted purple or whatever. I mean, there's no way. Yeah. It's not tied in. This isn't Goodwood, and this isn't the super selective historic components, but there's real cars out there, I mean, there's split window vets. Those aren't replicas. Those are real cars. So there's some debate about that always in Europe.
Split window vets. Were you worried about those guys?
No, I love that. And those guys are running, there used to be a bunch more split window vets running in California vintage racing. So that was fun to see. But I just love, man, the variety of cars over there is super cool. But there's like a solidly attended F1 group. There is
of like nostalgia,
Tag Heuer, weird Saudi Airlines, like 70s Niki Lauda cars and stuff. I mean, all that. So a cool aesthetic to that, a great sound. The sound of that group. I was trying to have a conversation with Zach while that group was on track, and just forget about it. So really fun to have Chris from our team and Zach from our team over there. That was fun to have Anthony from 1600 Veloce over there, who was there and excited to be visiting.
Did he bring any cars?
He did not, but he had an Alpha that he was driving and borrowing. So we were ripping around the countryside on the way to the track and back to the track.
GTV, or what was it?
No, it was a sedan, which was fun. So anyway, we had Zach drove that car too. You should.
I do need to ask him about that.
Subsequent podcast. So no, we had plenty of fun cars to drive and plenty of people coming by asking about BAT. A really fun mix of, I've never heard of BAT. Tell me what the heck is an auction? What are you talking about?
Oh, that's sick. We haven't had that in a while. That's like the old days. Then we had
people, where you been? I've been waiting for 10 years for BAT to be in Europe. We had people come from different countries just because we were there to say, hey, I want to be a local partner, or hey, I love BAT. Can I list my car? Or hey, I bought a car on BAT. So we gave 100 tickets out, 150 tickets out to BAT buyers from over in Europe. And a bunch of them showed up and said, thank you so much for the tickets. This is crazy. Nobody does this over here. So a lot of people were like, your methods are different. What's going on? So anyway, it's kind of fun to explain how we operate and why we're building community here and there. And it's just, that's a fun place to be. A lot of people are like, oh, why don't you take out big ad campaigns and do whatever. And I was like, I'd rather be in the
You're looking
paddock.
at the ad campaign, buddy.
I'm like, I'd rather be in the paddock with some weird cars that are being sold. It's a little bit more our comfort zone. So it was fun. Any
alumni cars, any cars that had been bought on BAT show up?
I'm trying to think if there were any that were actually on track that were on BAT. I'm not sure if I can pick one out. I'll be corrected by everybody afterwards. Okay. But there were cars in town and a couple great folks that showed up. And we got to go view one collection of cars. One of them, Mustang racers.
Oh, interesting.
You'd love this. They had like a Dutch GT350, so it was Wimbledon white with orange stripes. I'd never seen it before, but that's like their national color, right? They love that, so they customized the car. That fellow and his brother in particular is a huge BAT fan and took us to his collection to go see the 5 or 6 cars he's bought on BAT, including the pale yellow 63 Galaxie 427 out of LA. Do you remember that car?
I sure do.
Yellow steel wheels, hubcaps. I got to see that car in person. It's in the Netherlands, and he bought it and shipped it there. He's also bought a number of other modern cars and old cars. So I got to see a bunch of BAT alumni in Europe, which is cool to see.
Something about those big American cars in Europe, I know you feel the same way, is so exciting to me. I've long thought Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean, I think races a Falcon, either a Falcon or a Galaxie, or did at one point. I freaking love it. And I love the people who like that stuff over there. Like Lord March likes hot rods, right? He's got like
Lord March also built a 63 Galaxie too. And it was
I didn't
for
know
sale
that.
recently. Yeah, I think Fiskins is selling that one. Yeah, they like those cars. But funny you say that because I'm over there driving his Falcon around.
Right.
And actually trying to navigate these roads and park it a few times and gas it and do all these other different things. And numerous times, my dad and I were like, man, this would never work if this was a Galaxie. Like, we wouldn't be able to make this turn. We wouldn't be able to navigate this parking garage. We had to park it in an underground garage, which was insane. And it was like rattling the whole place. And like the exhaust fans were tripping on. Anthony was giving me trouble because the exhaust fans were coming on to like get the gases out so nobody dies, because they're all driving little electric,
it's
little
got a
hybrid
4-barrel
cars and whatever. Yeah, it's got a 4-barrel on 260. V8.
Dude, that's America. We liberated that shit.
It's like, so good. But we're like asphyxiating everyone in the parking garage, and they're looking at you like, wow, that's an awesome car. And then they like pass out and fall over. So anyway, it was funny trying to navigate a car that big around European streets, but people were applauding. And
of course, I bet they love it. There's strong car culture there.
Huge car culture there. And some people, you know, how when you're traveling, and this happens to me a lot anyway, maybe not you or others, but like they look at you and they know in 3 seconds you're American, right?
Yeah.
And so like the only way to amplify that further is to show up in like a muscle car. You know what I mean? I was like, the only way this is going to be crazier is if we're like flying a flag off the antenna or something. So anyway, it was painfully obvious to me, but it had Dutch plates on it. So maybe we threw a curveball. But anyway, that's enough about the Falcon. But the event, I would highly recommend the circuit. I would go see an F1 race there, but also, dude, the part that's the craziest on the circuit is it is cut into the sand, but there's high banking on a lot of the turns. You may know this about the circuit.
No, I didn't.
So it's like a ribbon of asphalt going through the sand dunes, and it's not like high banking like this is Indianapolis, Talladega or whatever. Right. It's not high speed, but like in a hairpin turn, they'll give you huge banking. Yeah. So we got to actually play around. I snuck onto the track when the Ford Club was going out. I was like, Chris, get in the Falcon. We're going. We're going to try to get on the track. And they did 3 or 4 parade laps, and we got to do it. But you drive it, and the curvature and the contour of the turns, there's probably 3 or 4 of them that are big
where
banking.
You feel the G like in your stomach.
Totally. Like if you were standing, if you stopped the car and you were standing, you'd like, tumble down the pavement. So that makes watching really cool, because you get these like fighter jet sort of views of the cars. And then driving it was very, like, I'm not fast enough to make the banking matter, but you could like feel what was going on. I mean, if you were going fast in a real car, like that could be quite an experience. And I couldn't quite wrap my head around like what a modern F1 car would be like going around some of this banking and stuff.
Seems like they'd bottom out.
But none of the circuits, like Silverstone or whatever, all these other circuits are like flat as a pancake, right? So which is cool because cars go spinning off and it's different aerodynamically. But this was a very, very interesting circuit that I would love to actually go to a track day on or do something like that. I think it'd be really fun.
what was in the Dutch Ford Club?
No, they're like driving 66 Mustang convertibles.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it was all U.S. looking cars, but they like those.
I saw
what
the
else is there?
French-
Maybe a couple Falcons, but a lot of Mustangs.
Yeah, I saw the French. It would have been I think it was maybe the 100th anniversary of Ford, so like 2003 or something like that. They brought. This was in Death Valley. This was when I still lived in the desert, or I was back there for some reason. The French Ford Club. No, sorry, the French Mustang Club came out, and they all rented V6 convertible, the Avis spec Mustang of the time. I think it was right when the retro cars came out. And there were like 200 of them driving through, and all those bright colors.
They love
driving
like Death Valley.
Totally.
Yeah, they love all that stuff. Europeans love that. So yeah, no, that whole crew was there. So we were going around on the track, and there was like some people in a convertible in front of us, and there was a Fastback, and there was some modern, and there was like 2000s era Mustangs. They sell those. They sell pretty modern Mustangs over there with smaller engines in them often. And so moderns have no Mercours.
Any Fox bodies?
No. Yes, actually. I think in town there were some, and then I think one or two may have been on the track with guys in Fox bodies.
The 60s Mustang is maybe a little less weird. A Fox body is a strong pull in Europe.
It gets weird lights and they mess it up, right?
Well, because there were good Fords you could buy in period there. You could buy the Cosworth Fords in the 80s, right? So you didn't, no
reason for that unless you're a real like weird, you spent time over here and then you took one back or something. But one other thing, Capri RSs running, are those 2600s or 2300s? I forget what they call them, but the V6, those were louder than the F1 cars. Those were kidding. So crazy to see on track and driving fast and loud. There was a team that had 3 of them, and they were unbelievable in terms of the sound.
These are like the big box flare, like silhouette cars, huge, kind of. Yeah,
huge. But it's a real car. It's a chassis car.
Oh, okay.
Unibody car, but it's but it has a body that almost looks like it could be what you're talking about.
Yeah, and a huge wing on them, right?
Big wings, huge wide BBSs on them and stuff. And they were so loud and crazy. It would like hurt, you cover your ears with your hands when they go by. So anyway, that's
kind of sick.
Invigorating. And I got a good photo of, under the hood of those with the V6 with the injection pipes and different stuff.
Just a super screaming, high revving, normally aspirated
Cologne V6, right? Yeah. Isn't that what they call that?
Yeah.
So anyway, we never get that stuff in the US. So that was special.
Awesome. Man, I'm so regretful that I wasn't there. That sounds amazing. Well, hopefully BAT will do it again.
That was the question. Everybody's like, so we'll see you next year,
When are you back? Well, you got my vote for doing another one. Anything else you want to talk about Europe-wise before we talk about the kind of big rollout we had product-wise?
No, just it's super interesting to watch the evolution of cars being listed from over there. We've for so long had so many questions from people. How do I list my car over there? What shipping resources do you have? We're going to be supplementing the site and doing a bunch more things to just help people do that, because Europe, obviously there's other auctions over there and there's other ways to buy and sell over there, and it's a different mix of cars, and there's questions around how do I title it? How do I get it here? Like who's this seller? But our local partners in the US have been so successful in terms of creating a reputation for themselves, and they helped so much. Like, I don't know about you, but so many more people that I talk to in the US are like, yeah, can I just give my car to somebody? 100%. I was just talking to somebody, and like their dad was standing there, and dad's like, I got to sell 2 cars. And the kid's like, actually, he's got to sell 12 cars. Do you have any help here, please? Can you please help us do this?
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, we totally can, in 52 places or whatever it is in the US. So doing that now in Europe, we've gotten that same question for so long. Plus there's the language barrier. Plus there's other shipping resources that they know even better than us. And so having partners there is going to be really meaningful. So we're talking to a bunch of folks and excited to roll out more of them.
100%. Very excited about all of it. Another exciting development is our kind of new post-auction feature for cars that don't meet reserve. This is a question we've gotten for years, Randy, from folks. And I know you've been interviewed about it and that you have had to answer this in various ways over the years. Even some of our power sellers, some of these local partners you're talking about are like, hey, you're leaving money on the table. I sell some of these cars that don't meet reserve 5 minutes after the auction ends. So we've been talking for a long time about what to do there. We've introduced this new process. Talk about it a little bit. I'm actually curious about your thinking on this, right? Because we resisted for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we call it reserve not met final offer. the final offer sort of process on the site, which is now brought into the site. You're kind of transacting on the site instead of, it was a little bit Wild Westy before, right? Like we would have some cars not meet reserve, which we obviously have a ton of no reserve cars, and we have a super sound sale rate at 80% or so, but that leaves 20% of the listings on BAT go just sort of off into the sunset, and you don't know what happens. And sometimes somebody will come back and say, hey, I bought the car. Or sometimes a seller will say, hey, you set me up with the bidder info and I made a deal, but it was really inconsistent, and we didn't make it easy on phone. We gave them the info, but like, I don't know, this is some guy's phone number in Wyoming, and now I'm supposed to call him, or he's supposed to call me, or do we do a deal?
BAT's out.
BAT's out of it. Right. And that was nice because it was nice of us to provide that, honestly. Correct. I thought when we imagined auctions at the beginning, I was like, what do we do when it doesn't sell? And it's like, do you hoard the info, or do you what you don't want is,
I don't know if you remember this. In the early days, we used to do it manual. Like we would do it kind of like, this was years ago when I first started. We would just kind of do it. Does the person want it? It was all like,
we'd like craft an email.
Totally. Yeah. Hey, do you want to try to still sell this?
Yeah.
And then we automated it, which was better, but still it was. And I think the other thing people always ask about is like, you see this in comment sections a lot. Like, I don't know what happened with this car. Sometimes a seller would hop in and be like, oh yeah, we sold it. And people would be like, yeah, but on BAT, it's still marked as unsold. And like, what happened? And so trying to bring more clarity there too is another aim of ours.
Yeah, absolutely. The inconsistency and people not knowing what happened. And I mean, the rest of the story, the after effects of a listing on BAT is something that I've always found very compelling. It's why the listings are permanent. It's why the comments are permanent. It's why everything is sort of written down. And so one thing we weren't figuring out how to write down was things that happen after the fact. So the right way to do that is not onesie, twosie emails and asking people and stuff. At this sort of scale, it was making that a process. So now, for those listening that don't know, now a high bidder gets a chance to, if they didn't have someone to bid against, if they would have gone a little bit more, if it would meet the reserve, they have a interface where they can do that, which is right on the listing and sets them up with a back and forth with the seller, and the seller can say what their reserve was if they want to, or they can sort of counter offer, or they can come back and forth. And we're finding, you don't really know until you turn this thing on, like, are people going to use it? Is it going to work? Where's the pain points? And we've been monitoring, and we've been pleasantly surprised, to say the least, of how many people are using it for offers, but then how many people are getting to a successful deal. Like it's very, I don't know, redeeming is the word, or what the word is. But when you see like an auction
validating,
totally. That's a good word for like 2 hours or 12 hours or whatever later, they're like, they came to a deal and they sold the car.
Our Allard today.
The Allard. So we had that killer special Allard J2, that green one. And you and I were like, oh man, it didn't sell. What a cool car. It was on my watch list, everything else. And then later on it sold, and we were like, high five, like somebody got it. Somebody did it. So anyway, that seems like a much better system for that, and giving people the ability to do that. And I mean, just in all transparency, we do now capture our fee for that.
Yes, for sure.
Which some people are like, oh, you're terrible people because you used to give it to us for free and now you don't. So there's some upsides and some downsides to the discussion. But we've also, and you can speak to some weird stories that have happened in the past. Like, people would send us money.
Oh yeah, randomly. They'd be like, you deserve a fee, so I'm sending it to you.
Yeah, so we'd like, there was, again.
Or they'd offer, and a lot of times I'd be like, no man, all good. Like,
yeah, totally. Like, we weren't pushing for that. Like it was always a weird, inconsistent Wild West. And when it comes to auctions and transparency and what we're trying to preach here, like having a consistent experience for folks that they can rely on and know that the other end of the line is a legitimate person, and verifying all that sort of thing is what really needed to be elevated in this sort of area. So now it extends the fee that would have been paid just in the bidding. Now it's done for the after sale process. Yeah, we're going to see how it works and see what data we can learn from. But the fact that it's posted publicly,
that's the thing for me, man.
It's now
our
the
new blue
bubble.
box. We haven't had a new color in so long.
The blue bubble in the comment section that says this was sold afterwards, and then the status trips to sold, and then it populates differently on the data chart. It's all really integrated. The team worked really hard to think about those design decisions. And anyway, again, I can talk for hours and hours about this sort of stuff, but it's, people ask like, oh, well, in the early days you gave us stuff, or you did that, or you did the other. And the main reason we didn't do it in the early days was it's complicated to build.
Yes.
And also we were trying to prove this auction model even worked at all in the 100%. Early days, right? It was like, this was kind of hand waving and like, I hope this works. And so to do some things like, oh, pretty please give us some cars. We will give you the high bidders info if it doesn't sell was kind of a like, it was the crossover of the Venn diagram of like easy to build and like would attract some people to the model, right? And obviously 10 years later, as we're hitting this month, it's a different world now. And most people are like, why don't you do this? Why do you leave it so loose?
Yes.
So we changed it and we built it out and we now have the firepower to do that. And I'm thankful for that.
100%. And for me, a keen watcher of the site was before I worked here and have been ever since I worked here, watching it every day, all day long. I love the transparency piece of it. I know it sounds like tooting our own horn, but seeing that the car sold, seeing when they actually do transact, letting everyone comment on it, right? Like a lot of people are throwing comments and they're like, so great to see what happened here, right? Like people who are not even bidders or buyers, or maybe somebody who wasn't under bidder would still like to know what happened to that car. Because one of the things I think about a lot, this was another wonderful Randy idea, but calling cars that come back for the second, third, fourth time to be auctioned on BAT, we call them alumni cars. That was a thing you were passionate about. We mark them clearly. We link to the old listing. There's a history module so you can see what the old listing was like, read through it. A lot of those come to us and they were occasionally are cars that didn't meet reserve the first time. And sometimes it's not even the high bidder who bought it. And I'm like, we have to fish for the history of what happened between the last auction and the current one. And that's still true to some extent, but this reduces a lot of that mystery. There's just more of a car's history pasted onto our website, which is very much in keeping with our philosophy.
I love all that. And I mean, you always wonder, and I mean, we're coming up on Monterey season and auctions coming to town and like the murkiness of the whole deal, dude. And like the stuff going on behind the scenes and
didn't that car sell?
It sold and wait, it's on the stand again on the next night. You're just like, there's so many like weird, you wish you knew the story. And so anything that an auction platform can do to like let people know what happened, I think is so different. People are like, you guys are crazy. And it's it's not that crazy. And it's all automated. It's not like us pulling the levers behind the scenes and automating that blue bubble or whatever. It's like the buyer and seller like made a deal and it pops up and we don't have to mess with it. It's actually kind of our favorite part about it is that's no longer weird emails being lobbed into Howard and you and like people trying to, hey, I was the third underbidder. Can you set me up? It's like, no, it's like the high bidder is now in bids, in offers with the seller.
Totally.
And like
next time bid.
Totally. So
if you want the car.
So anyway, it's giving a more structured answer to that, which before was, well, let's see, like there's emails flying around and it's so lame. So anyway, this has put structure to that, which we'll see how it works, and see what happens in the next few months.
In some ways, it's it's big boy stuff, and we've changed. We've also changed so little. It's 10-year anniversary this month, 10 year of BAT auctions, and I've been reflecting a lot on. Somebody just sent me lot number 1. They're like, "Look how different it is." I'm like, "Look at how the same it is. It's the same." Like, we put the pictures in the same order, and like we don't say things exactly the same way, but it's like actually not that different. I was reflecting on that as recently as today. What have you been thinking about? 10 years on.
Well, there's so many. What are we at? 100? We hit 160,000.
We're damn close if we're not. Yeah,
I don't know.
It's so many moves so fast.
But I love that you're talking about lot 1. Lot 1 was Boss 302.
Speaking of Mustangs,
I took the photos for that car. So one thing that has changed.
Did you write it too?
Photos are, of course, like terribly. I'm sure you hate it.
No, not at all.
So it's me.
A lot of people would rather our listings look like that than the way I've developed them.
I know, but like talking about your own car is so weird, right? Because you can be like, the shifter rattles or whatever.
Yep.
You say stuff that like somebody right in the car will never know. So what am I thinking about? Obviously just the 10-year run of auctions and the volume on the site. And just my biggest goal is always to make the cars individually just as special now as they were in the day, right? We launched BAT Auctions with 3 cars. It's pretty easy to, hyper control that situation and make sure each of the 3 were special.
This is what I've been thinking about this all the time.
But dude, then go do that. Go do that for 1,000 cars, right? So you've been the mastermind of that over the last several years, where we've gone from call it 100 a week to 1,000 a week. That's the tricky part, and the part that people really underestimate.
Oh my god, it's so hard.
Is super easy, but it's really hard. So
for people like you and me who like things to be a certain way, like you and I were talking about 32 Fords today, and it's like I wish I could add there's too many 32 Fords even for me to be on top of all of them, and I want it done a certain way, and you can't, but then how do you keep them the way you largely want? I've been thinking about that a lot too, about how hard it's been to scale, but keeping kind of our core ethics and values and inculcating them into all the new people we've hired and trained. We've done pretty damn well, man. I mean, a lot of people on staff who I'm like, gosh, I don't know if I could do as good as you do. You know, we have some really impressive people.
Yeah, I mean, the best part of BAT is that people are always like, oh, it's Randy's, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, the best part of BAT is that it's not me writing the listings. And it's not me certainly photographing the listings. I used to drive to people's like houses and take pictures of the cars. I mean, that's a terrible idea. First of all, I'm not a good photographer. But they were like, Randy, can you come do it? You're better than my phone or whatever. And I was like, not much better. But anyway, it's obviously come a very long way, and it's fun to reminisce about that. And I wish that Boss 302 would show up. If anybody knows where Lot 1 Boss 302 is, that's the only car of the day one that is unaccounted for. It was
right, because the white M3 is the E30 M3 is showing up again.
That's coming to our event at Monterey.
No kidding.
That's coming from the East Coast to West Coast, and the Alpha is accounted for. I know exactly where it is, but right now, the
blue step nose,
and it's available to you right now.
No
for
kidding.
A price. Yes.
Okay.
But the Boss was put through a Russo and Steel auction for those of you
mini lights on it?
Over a certain age at home who have heard of that brand. And then there was some dysfunction or like controversy around the sale or whatever. And then it like went to some buyer unknown and is gone. Nobody knows where that
mini
car
lights
is.
On it still when it was at Russo?
It had 17-inch vintage Wheelworks mini light-esque wheels. Do you know those wheels? Vintage Wheelworks was a big deal when I was in high school.
Yeah.
It is part of the reason I bought that car, but 17 was 1 inch too big.
Plus one too much. Yeah.
No, it was plus two.
Plus two too much.
But that car, my dad and I drove on the Monte Shelton, and I parked that car in the Mission and got tacos in it and everything else. And anyway, took pictures in front of the chocolate factory down here.
Oh, yes.
You know the place?
It's now actually all finished. They were working on it back at our old office. Dandelion chocolate.
Dandelion.
It's gorgeous inside. Let's go have some brownies after this, man.
We should. I parked the Boss in front of that place with the headlights on and took the photos of that listing and then sold that car. But for too cheap, super cheap for that car.
I've heard you talk in interviews about how if there was one car for you, that's the car. Maybe not that exact one, but that model.
No. I mean, I like 70 Boss 302,
yes.
Calypso Coral. Like that car is awesome in almost any spec with that color in that year. But like hubcaps, I'll take it. You know,
I love them with hubcaps.
Any of that stuff. But that car was a modified Boss 302, which you don't find very often. And I was fortunate to get to grab it and then sell it on BAT. But that's not the like one car getting away story or anything. There's lots of cool Mustangs and Galaxies and all this stuff. But that's the most mysterious one. There's a lot of cars on BAT, you kind of know where they ended up, but that one is like, it vanished. So if somebody knows where that car is, the VIN's still on the website. You could maybe find it.
We'll be able to link to it in the podcast description, that lot number 1, auction number 1. 10 years is great. Monterey is coming up. We've been doing that for a lot of years. What was the first year we went to Monterey? 26?
Oh, dude. In its current form.
17?
No, but I mean, there were early days Monterey where it was like my wife and I at the BAT table.
Pre-auction.
I mean, that's like way early if you want to get into that.
I actually would love to hear about
my
that.
My FJ40 was there towing a trailer out of the paddock with a Porsche race car
This is
on
pre-auction?
as our display. Yeah, this had to be 2010.
Amazing.
Like super old school.
Like in Vendor Row? Where were you?
On the grass. No, we rented a tent area and they just sold us the tent area and then we fanned cars out around it and they got all mad at us because we didn't pay for the grass. We just paid for the tent area. So anyway, there were some days. But
I've never heard that story.
But that's like 4 ownerships of Laguna Seca ago. Sure. Right? That's 14 years. So at least 4 different entities have run the track since then. So who knows where those people are. But we had all sorts of weird stuff.
Still mad, probably wherever they are.
Sold some cars straight from the grass there in BAT exclusive form, which is solid. Found a car, was in Monterey for that first deal and found a car downtown Monterey with a for sale sign on it and talked to the owner and convinced him to come to the tent.
No kidding.
And put it on BAT and it sold that day via BAT.
What car was that?
68 911S red.
Wow.
So they didn't have a 68S in the US,
yeah, right?
That's a
Euro
car.
Yeah,
I forget if it had terrible side markers.
It's a coupe or a Targa?
Whatever. A coupe, red with some primer spots. Like it was just a driver scruff. We should look at what the price was. It was probably like 25 grand or something.
Amazing.
Right? It was like no money. 911S, the guy brought it out and we gave him, we're like, we'll give you a ticket and parking. And the guy's looking at us like, what's bring a trailer and stop bothering me and whatever else. And we put it on the website because it's like stuff was very real time on BAT back then. It was kind of like, oh, there's a Craigslist car. Let's go look at it and put it on BAT. And that car went and sold. So that's maybe one of the fondest moments of the early BAT lore is the 911S that sold from the tent at Laguna. But that's, again, early days. But we skipped some years, and then we came back with a vengeance with our big new alumni gathering model, which probably started in, 2018?
That sounds right.
Something like that.
Something like that.
There were off and on years, but Monterey's always been sort of home turf for us. But even before Monterey, dude, the first weekend in August, I'm going, and we're all going for alumni gathering in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Yes. I was just showing the staffers downstairs a video. Like, I was like, no, it's like old school racing through the park. They're like, kind of didn't understand. And then I
was like,
popped
think
it
Golden
on.
Gate Park, San Francisco, and put up a bunch of hay bales and then run like bug eye sprites through it really fast.
And people were like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, that's a curb. That's a wall. Like, and like,
there's stone bridges.
Yes. This is one of those things. It's like the Reno air races, which are now over. And I never went to, and I was like, I know this is going to end someday because it's too sketchy. And like Pittsburgh is one of these things. I want to race in it, dude. I don't want to just see it, but I would also like to just see it.
Yep. We have some big BAT fans there that are out racing it and participating and are part of the organization. So we did one of our first alumni gatherings with some old faces, man, that are old school BAT, came out of the woodwork. Scott Ailes came out of Florida and came up there. First place I ever met him.
That was also like 7 or 8 years ago. It was a long time ago.
And so many people. And but small, right? I think we had 25 cars there, right? Yeah. And now, I mean, Laguna is going to be 300 cars or more. So anyway, but we're doing that one, and it's on the grassy knoll next to the races.
Monterey?
It's called Schenley Park. It's 2 weeks before Monterey. Okay. I think it's the 2-3.
Oh gosh, that's only like next weekend then, something like that.
Yeah, it is next weekend. I'm flying out there on Friday. So we're going to have BAT team members there. We're going to have merch. If you're at Schenley Park, definitely come say hi to the folks at the tent at BAT. I'll be there.
You getting that same grassy knoll that you got last time?
I don't know if it's exact same, but it was a great spot.
I was watching the racing, and I'm like, oh, that's the hill. You can see it from the cars.
The cars went straight in front of us, and it's grassy, and you're in a park, and like a bunch of BAT wackos show up with cool cars, and we're giving away refreshments and stuff. And then there's way more than just the BAT part. Like there's the BMW Club was there, and the Alpha Club was there, and it was CCA Oktoberfest last time we were there, and there was all sorts of crazy stuff going on, and they only gave us this one position because all the others are occupied by a bunch of other regulars. So there will be a lot of car activities at Schenley Park in Pittsburgh, PA, where my dad hails from.
Is your dad going too?
He's actually not. He had a conflict on this one. He was at the last one and bought a car to go to it and drove it across America to bring it home.
Was that the Merc, the Mercedes?
The sedan.
Yeah, God, that car is
sedan.
Good. Does he still have that?
No, he got the exact same color coupe.
Oh, W111 coupe.
Sedan.
Good for him.
I think he sold it to Roy Spencer. Anyway, he sold the sedan and kept the coupe.
250?
His coupe's a 280.
280. Good for him.
Maybe 250. Man, it's right in the late 60s.
Love those.
Black plate car, coupes. One of the last black plate cars.
Oh, sick.
So I think that means
69 and a half, I think is when they ended.
It's not a 70.
Yep.
So anyway, we're going all around the horn right now. Anybody who is still listening to all of these different topics, hat tip to you guys, because Alex and I love to bounce off so many different things. But Pittsburgh's going to be great. I will be there. Monterey's going to be great. I will be there, and I'm leaning on you to be there and some others.
Slightly different location, but basically the same, right? Maybe a little expanded
turn 4 instead of turn 3. Yep. In between turn 4 and turn 5, where they used to have Vendor Village, they've bulldozed all that and they put BAT in there. So we're going to have
did they change the
no, I'm just
landscape?
Saying there are more the strategy. They bulldozed the strategy.
The tents. The vendors.
Yeah, the people selling artwork and the people selling mattresses or whatever. Like those have been booted, and now we're going to have it full of BAT alumni cars, which I think is an upgrade. And Saturday is the big day.
Corkscrew again?
And we're doing stuff up in the Corkscrew too, which is my favorite place to be. So, anyway, BAT Alumni Gathering, and there's more. I mean, we're doing meetups. I think we're doing Detroit. We got other parts of the country covered as well, but definitely wanted to make sure people know about Pittsburgh and then know about Monterey.
Yeah.
And
always a party at Monterey. Always amazing.
Yeah. Talking the history of BAT a little bit, and we'll bring out some good cars. There'll be some live cars. People surprise us and they bring a car and enter it, and they're like, oh, by the way, it's live on BAT. And some partners will be at the different events, which is fun if people want to meet local partners. So good to come and check it out.
Yeah. I'm excited about all of that. It's always fun being at Monterey. What's the featured mark this year? Do you know?
There's a Daytona Coupe on the poster, I think.
Oh, interesting.
Which is weird because it's not like a Shelby year, I don't think.
Gosh, I don't know if I've ever seen a Daytona Coupe actually race. There's usually a couple cool Cobras, but I don't know if I've ever seen a coupe.
I just saw like an email about tickets to the event, and I thought it was a Daytona Coupe, but there's
you know what? Beck told me
GTP cars are coming.
Is it the 50th? I think it's the 50th anniversary. I could be misquoted. It's the 50th anniversary of the Historics.
Oh, really?
So that might be what the theme was. He told me what it was, and now I can't remember.
Yeah,
I'm an ill-prepared podcast host.
Yeah, that's fine.
We put on our own party. The BAT party is going to be fun.
It's going to be amazing. I don't know. I mean, featured mark got super high visibility for a long time, and then they've kind of, I don't know whether they changed it or people didn't want to show it.
Seems like it matters less for sure.
But I mean, the Shelby year at Monterey, when it was like, that was the featured mark, and the BMW year and the Audi year and all these sorts of things were so crazy.
I know.
And the whole thing was sponsored by Chrysler for some years.
Didn't you tell me there was an auto union year and there were a bunch of autos? That was the Audi year.
Audi brought Audi Tradition. Yeah. And they brought crazy auto unions and brought them to Pebble. And like there was awesome manufacturer involvement. So we'll see. They tend to drum up crazy stuff. Mazda's doing more. A friend of mine, said the Nissan GTP cars coming out. So I'm sure there'll be like a Camel series sort of group or whatever for 80s and 90s cars. And there's a meaningful saloon group that is different this year at Monterey that friends of ours are racing in, which is not B Sedan. There's a B Sedan group, but this is like a saloon group that'll have a ton, like a 50, 60 car field, I think.
Wow.
So anyway, there will be some good action.
Awesome. Any other events or things you're looking forward to doing that week? You got anything else booked? Usually you're doing a talk or something.
I'm running around that week. It's a little mellower this week, but we have guests that are going to be there and hanging with local partners. Our European local partner will be there if you want to talk to him. ImageStreetClassics, Ken from ImageStreetClassics will be there. And the team from 1600 Veloce is coming out.
Oh, good. I've never met Sarah before in person.
I think we can give a little bit of a teaser that the MohrImports local partner are going to be selling some cars.
They always do a collection in Monterey Car Week collection on BAT. They've been doing it for 3 or 4 years, and we're definitely doing another one. Excited
about that. So they're going to be around and have some cars for sale. So no, there's going to be plenty going on.
Plenty of action.
And then probably going to go to Pebble Beach this year because there's some out of town guests that have never been there.
That's fun. That'll be cool.
So anyway, it's a good event, home team event, and we love seeing BAT cars out there and BAT people.
Absolutely. Awesome, dude. We covered plenty of ground there. We were all over the place. Anything else you want to talk about? Parting shots?
Parting shots are just like there's some cool stuff on the site.
We could
go another 45 minutes on.
You and I recorded our own podcast sitting down in the office earlier.
Yes. What were we talking about? We were talking about green cars. We were talking about
the Allard.
And what was the other one?
We were talking about the Bullitt clone. Speaking of Sarah Mustang. And 1600 Veloce.
That car sold today, and whoever got that is a lucky person because I've seen that car in person, and it's incredible. No, but there's been some fantastic stuff going through. My watch list is certainly vibrant. And
did you see the all-wheel drive? Because you would remember this. You saw the Summit Racing 4-wheel drive 32 Ford. The Quadra-Deuce.
I was most.
You remember that car from when you were a kid?
The term Quadra-Deuce is crazy, but the fact that the listing title started with Summit Racing.
I know.
I was like, did they buy this at Summit Racing? Did they start making Repop 32s? I was like, what is going on? But it's a car that was sponsored by them and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that car must have been at a Good Guys show I was at back then.
I remember seeing it on the cover of magazines. Totally. And it was like, for my dad, like a classic.
Explain what it is, though. It's an all-wheel drive.
Commissioned by Summit Racing, all-wheel drive, 32 Ford Roadster, like total 90s graphics and everything on it. Had a red hardtop on it for a long time. The guy who bought it from Summit and is selling it on BAT through one of our partners, Wob Cars, has refurbished it a little bit, replaced the interior, put a Sid Shavers bop top on it. But the hardtop is included. The red hardtop is included, which I would put back on. Has a trademark comes with it. It's trademarked. And I don't know if you saw, it's got a California vanity plate that's like quad deuce or something like that.
Is it one of one? It must be.
Oh, totally. It's all-wheel drive is the big thing, right? That it's, for the 90s, incredibly fast, like 3 seconds, 0 to 60 or something like that. But yeah, we've got all the car. It's a great listing.
So
we've got all the
drive the front wheels. I'm looking at it. It's got like CVs going straight out, but like above the frame.
Yep.
Like, but what's the unit? Like what?
It must have a transfer case, right? It's not coming off the front of the block. I'm not sure how it works exactly.
I don't know. I need to look at it.
Yeah, we need to.
But
you
it's
need to go
wild,
deep.
huh?
But it's got the '90s engine covers that match the body. It's got all that '90s stuff, that Boyd Coddington era hot rod. But a significant car that I remember.
Currently bidding at 67 G's, ends tomorrow. It's going to end before this podcast goes live. So people are going to get to go back and look. Bidding was at 67, and we'll see where the bidding goes.
Cool car, though. Yeah,
it was on the cover of Car and Driver that also had the Prowler on it.
Well,
there was just a lot of 90s mist going on.
I bet the Prowler is eggplant colored, if I had to guess.
It is. Of course you know.
Aubergine.
It was built in 1995. Anyway, I love that one pops up. But there's a lot of interesting...
Few Randy Nottenberg dollars probably went into that.
From my Summit Racing purchases? Absolutely. From my 95? So what was I buying out of it? What were you buying out of the Summit catalog in 95? So that was my junior year of high school.
Did you have V8?
I would have been in a Fastback, 65 Fastback, and I bought a set of torque thrusts from Summit.
Hell yes, you did.
I bought...
How about some shiny valve covers?
I bought a etched Hurst 5-speed shifter because I had a T5 in by that point. I maybe did some valve covers or an air cleaner or
some breathers, some chrome breathers,
a couple breathers, couple things. I had some cool parts in that car, but some of them didn't come from Summit. I'm trying to think of what else would have come from Summit, but I may have gotten the transmission from Summit. I don't even know. But anyway, the Summit catalog showing up in the mail. Like everybody's online, but no, I still get the paper Summit catalog. They found me because I buy stuff from them.
I bet you leaf through it.
I leaf through that. Before that, I leaf through it for the walk from the table inside the front door where the mail sits to the recycle bin. Like I leaf it and then it goes recycled.
I know that game,
right?
Yeah, I do. That.
And then I go look at it all online. But no, I got the Summit app on the phone. I'm no stranger to those guys. Those guys are selling tires. Sometimes those guys are the best way to get
absolutely.
And they're pretty quick.
I think it was in. This is
unpaid for. This is unsolicited Summit rant.
We used to. I think it was in Reno. That's where one of their huge places is, right?
Distribution center,
crate motors,
no tax.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it is. Yes, that's right.
Good.
That's right. Right next to the huge Bass Pro Shops.
I love all of that, and no, they've been very, very helpful over the. Obviously, they're not paying for this ad because I just said that I throw their catalog in the garbage like 5 minutes after I get it.
Well, whatever sponsorship chance we had is now over. So well done, Randy.
I do that so that I can look at it online.
That's right.
So that I can look at it obsessively online. So anyway, I don't know how we got on that, but yeah, cool cars.
Cool cars on the site.
That's one of
the Allard has Ardun heads on it, which is the thing I'm obsessed with. The big overhead valve conversion for flatheads done by Zora or Stuntop.
And wildly, they fit within the bodywork on that, right? Because if you put Arduns on a 32, you can't fit it in the
hood sides anymore. But it's the same problem with a Hemi. Like if you put a Chrysler Hemi in a hot rod, it doesn't fit. But it looks awesome.
But it was crazy for me to look at that car that sold today and the fact that the Ardun heads were like enclosed, fully enclosed. You didn't know until you opened
But they put Chrysler Hemis in the 50s in those cars too. So they fit.
That was a fascinating car. And that sold with Reserve Not Met functionality.
Heck yeah, it did.
After the fact.
Blue box,
If you want to see what one of those looks like, go look for the Allard. Anyway, Allard Registry comments on I don't know who that is.
I met that guy at the Monterey event. He's young, surprisingly.
Really?
Yeah, he came up to me and he was not happy with how we list all of our Allards. We don't have enough wonky stuff in them. And I'm like, he was critical of that. And I'm like, well, you're talking to the right person. I'm the one in charge of, editing these and making sure the listings are accurate. And he was very nice and runs the Allard registry and I think had one of those kind of weird sedan street Allards, is it a K series? I can't keep them all straight.
It's a sedan. I'm bothered. I don't know what that means.
It's J2 for me, J2, J2X. There's the Ks. Anyway, offered, as a lot of these folks do, reach out to me at any time. Yeah. Not that we always have time to reach out to get the history of every Allard. And of course we have sellers who think their own things about their cars, right? Yeah. But interesting guy. And
I'm just saying he comments on every Allard and that Allard, like he was in there dicing it up.
That's awesome.
Talking about it, which
is the username Allard Registry?
Totally,
I missed it. Oh,
totally.
Good for him.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
that's BaT magic, man. Hey, if there's a legacy 10 years on, it's that. Right? That's so cool.
People are involved.
They sure are. All right, Randy, thanks for doing this as always, man. We got a lot more we got to catch up on, so we'll have to do another one of these soon. Thanks to all of you who made it this far, to use Randy's words. If you have questions, concerns, or feedback, it's podcast@bringatrailer.com. And thanks as always for listening.